Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be. Welcome to D on the Couch. If you're new to my channel, you are very welcome. And please consider supporting me by pressing the subscribe button. So my guest today is Rachel Eden, the Deputy Mayor of Reading and Councillor for Whitley. Rachel, you are very welcome to D on the Couch. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure to see you, Dee.
So it's been a while since we
has.
saw each other.
Yeah, something got in the way the last few months.
I know it's global pandemic maybe, but it was so much fun campaigning for you. We run a very strong, a very honest campaign, but unfortunately we didn't get the results that we wanted. But we've moved on.
We
from
have.
that.
We have.
So just to ease us into this conversation, Jaffa cakes. Are they cakes or biscuits?
Well, as an accountant... No, well, I mean, obviously there was a real court case on this, as you know.
I know there was, yes.
So the test of a biscuit is whether it goes soggy when it goes stale, or does it go hard?
Mm-hmm.
And that was the key point in that case.
Okay.
So it's about whether or not you have to charge VAT on them. Having said that, I think they're biscuits.
You think they're
because
biscuits?
They're small and flat.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm inclined to go with McVitie's and say they're a chocolate covered cake.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, that is the official line.
Yeah.
You know.
So the jury is still out on that one.
I can send you a link with the full details, Dee.
Please do. So can you tell us a bit more about yourself? For example, your family life. Are you partnered? Do you have children? And I know apart from politics, you do other things. So could you tell us a bit more?
So I live up in Tilehurst with my partner.
Mm-hmm.
I've got two kids who are both at primary school.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm a Reading girl.
Ready go.
But outside of politics, I mean, actually, my day job is, as I'm sort of hinted with the Jaffa cake answer, is that I'm actually an accountant. And I run a small award-winning accountancy practice.
Yes, I read that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my day job.
Good on you, a woman of many talents. Okay, so how did you manage to keep your family occupied or sane even during the lockdown?
Well, I think we all had quite similar challenges, didn't we? I mean, I think everyone had their own lockdown. You know, everyone faced slightly different challenges, but we all faced that same problem of what do you do when everything is up in the air. My children, like almost every other child who wasn't the key worker's child, being homeschooled by me.
How did that go?
Interesting. I mean, one of them basically taught herself and was absolutely brilliant. The other one needed a little bit more reminders. I think the lure of the Lego was quite important to him. Okay. But yeah, we got through it.
Yeah, it's not easy.
And actually, I would never wish a global pandemic, but there were some silver linings. You know, I was very fortunate to be able to spend quite a lot of time with my children. So yeah, that was actually really positive. I think the biggest challenge was balancing that and the sort of loss of income and the difficulty of keeping the workflow going as a self-employed person.
Sure. Okay. And did you discover any hidden talents during this time?
I'm not sure they would be counted as talents. Hidden interests. I definitely reconnected with my garden. I'm really lucky to have had a garden that needed a lot of work. As you know, I moved house only a couple of miles, but I moved house last year, and my new garden had more than its fair share of ivy, shall we say, and other things. So I discovered a real joy in the use of a saw and a spade.
I think that's a talent.
Yeah,
definitely. And are you settled?
Yes. Yeah, and actually, you know, there's nothing like being locked at home for months at a time to really connect with your home, is there?
And to connect with your partner, how was that?
That was great.
That was
obviously absolutely plain sailing.
Not plain sailing.
No, I mean, you know, actually, you know, I think it's one of those things, isn't it? When you have a lot of time together, it does. And you can go through a very challenging period together. It actually brings you closer together.
I think so. Yeah.
Well, hopefully it does.
Yeah.
You know,
you get to learn a lot more about each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, we had different challenges, but we face them together.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I became a chef.
Wow.
Specialising in French onion soup. Ooh la la.
Well, once I'm allowed to start coming around for food again,
Yes, you should,
invite
definitely.
myself, because I always love your dinners.
Oh, thank you. And so what was running for parliamentary elections like? We already kind of touched on this a little bit. Like I said, you run a very strong, a very honest campaign. I know this because I obviously campaigned for you. I'm not biased or anything.
Entirely objective support.
Very objective. And what was it like day to day for you?
I think the biggest learning for me, and it sounds really boring, was like time management, because much as people sort of assume that it's your full-time job if you're running for Parliament, of course it's not. Unless you're already an MP, it's not your job. So you have
Sorry,
to.
I should have turned that off.
And you've got to balance your family life, your work life. So that was probably the biggest challenge. But I think the biggest blessing was just the wonderful people who helped me along the way, whether it was my work team, some of whom support me politically, at least one of whom I know would never vote for my political party in a million years, but were incredibly supportive about sort of filling in and helping out. Wonderful people like yourself, friends who really made a difference.
Who are not really well versed in politics, but we believed in you, so we did campaign for you.
Well, we had, and obviously some people will campaign for the party, and some people, like you say, just come out because they know you, and that is, it's just an incredible experience. And of course, meeting Hugh Grant was a little side thing.
I cannot believe I missed out on that.
I wasn't allowed to tell you.
So during the counting of votes, when I heard that 2 people had met him through you, and I went, this is not okay with me. But I got over that eventually.
I'm surprised you ever spoke to me again.
So Hugh Grant, if you're listening, I'm still here waiting to say hello to you.
We want you to come back to Reading.
Yes, please do.
I still follow you on Twitter, mate.
So okay, we have to talk about the pandemic, obviously. So in your opinion, do you think this government handled the pandemic effectively, or could they have taken it a bit more seriously from the outset, like some people think?
I think it's really easy to have the benefit of hindsight, and obviously being a Labour politician, you'd expect sort of a bit of political knockabout, but I think it's too serious for that. And I mean, my concern from the get-go was about the sort of fairly inconsistent approach that was being taken, and I think if you look at like how long it was before we were supposed to wear masks in shops, I was going out in the shops and I was the only person wearing a mask because it was May, and I almost felt like I was a weirdo for wearing a mask.
Yeah, I did wear a mask. I did take my gloves out with me.
And you felt like you were the only one. Or the kind of toing and froing about working from home, those kind of things. I think that sort of messaging has been a bit problematic, and I've also got huge concerns about some of the stuff around PPE equipment, and the test and trace, obviously. But having said that, I want the government to be. I kind of actually want the government to have done this well, because I wanted people not to die.
Exactly.
And I think we all wanted, whatever our political persuasion was, we wanted the government to have a grip on it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I was going to say. It doesn't matter what your political affiliations were. We're talking about lives at the end of the day. And
the sort of honest truth is, I actually think we've had one of the worst responses in Europe, which is really, it's a bit of it's a huge tragedy for our country, and you just hope that they'll have learnt something about the last 6 months, and so the next 6 months will be better. But I think to some extent, as Reading, I was just listening to the radio on the way here about how Reading has relatively lower infection rates than some other parts of Berkshire. We've got to try and keep that and look after each other as a community, because I don't think we can just trust that the national guidance will be enough.
Okay. So, were you to find yourself PM tomorrow morning, what do you think you could have done differently?
Well, I'd like to think I'm a fairly clear and consistent person. I might not be able to use Latin phrases,
Mm-hmm.
or, things like that.
Trying to confuse the general public.
I don't ruffle my hair up, not deliberately anyway. But I think that consistency of message.
Yeah.
I also think that there's something about making sure that you have proper processes in place so that when you're commissioning work, and sometimes all governments use the private sector, but when you're commissioning work from the private sector, you do it properly and coherently, and you don't just leave things on trust.
Yeah.
Because I think otherwise you have that danger that things go wrong.
Yeah.
And it's not the subcontractor that's the ultimate person paying the price there. It's the public.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of life and death. You've got to do procurement properly.
Yeah.
So that I think those two things, communication and proper planning, those are the two things I'd go for.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so many citizens and businesses faced unprecedented hardship during this time. So do you think the Chancellor's bailout packages were adequate enough? Were they effective enough? And the furlough scheme.
Yeah, so I think again it's very easy with the benefit of hindsight to think I'd have done this differently, that differently, and I have to say that there were some really good things about the government response. I think there was a little bit of a slow start. At first there was, in my line of work I saw businesses kind of shut up, close up, before packages had time to help them. But I think there was a huge amount of support put in place as a sort of emergency resuscitation, if you like. But then the question is, how do you support the economy into the future? And there were a lot of people missed out. So a lot of self-employed people completely missed out and didn't get any support. And there are a lot of businesses which haven't had any support, including some which I think are the sort of businesses we really need to survive because they support the economy and they support people's jobs. So I think there's a need now for much more targeted help. Some of the businesses that have actually done really well out of COVID, still got government support, and yet other businesses which are creaking and really need a cash injection to enable them to recover had nothing. So it's that balance, and now is the time, instead of kind of a sort of panic rush, which there was in March and April, we need a proper plan and really targeted support, but enough of it. There was a grant that came out last month in Berkshire, and I know this because I tried to apply for it for Holybrook.
I knew this was the right question for you, having your accounting background.
And a number of my clients and network tried to apply for it, and it was I thought it was a very good scheme. It was very targeted, it was about recovery, it was about adaptation. But the problem was, when they opened the grant portal for it, at first it crashed because everyone got it once. And then within, I think it was an hour of them actually finally managing to get the scheme open, and people I knew sitting there hitting refresh to try and get to apply for it, a message went up saying, no more applications. And that sort of thing, you think that's crazy. That was a really good grant scheme. If they and I don't blame the people who are running the application process, they had a very small number of grants. If they'd had 100 times those grants and maybe targeted some of the other support in a different way, or didn't just bail out in a sort of untargeted way, they could have targeted the support better. So I think that's what we need to be doing now, and I certainly don't think, I was quite angry, I don't want to be too political, but I was quite angry when I saw it being suggested by a certain MP that people working in wedding industry, the events industry, should go and get better jobs. That's really incredibly inappropriate, because those people have got highly skilled jobs. They're industries we need to survive, because people are going to get married again and are going to want photographers.
Exactly.
People are going to want to go to theatres and gigs in the future.
We would miss all of that.
It's one of the things that makes life worthwhile.
Exactly,
right?
yes.
And to suggest that those people don't have good jobs,
that's ridiculous.
No, it's ridiculous. They need support, and that's the business secretary saying that. That's not appropriate.
Not appropriate at all. Okay, so taking you back to the elections. During the campaign, the former Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, repeatedly refused to tell the public what he would do in relation to Brexit were he to win the elections. Now, do you think this may have hampered a Labour win?
I think Brexit was definitely the big issue.
It really
of the
was.
December election.
It really was,
and
because
I think,
that's
you know,
all Conservatives talked about. That's all the current Prime Minister talked about.
Yeah, that was his big offer.
Yeah.
Now, you know, we can talk about the rights and wrongs of Labour's Brexit policy, obviously, and I have got views on Brexit. My personal view is that we should have remained in the European Union. I think actually right now it sort of demonstrates the importance of international cooperation and solidarity of what's gone on this year. But my view was always really clear in the election, and I've certainly found that helped me. I can't talk for other candidates elsewhere, but for what helped me was being really honest and upfront and saying, well, my view is this: we should stay in the European Union, but we had a referendum on it, so actually before we rush into saying, well, actually we're just going to cancel Brexit, or we're going to just rush ahead with a deal that nobody knew what that deal was going to be when they voted the first time, is we'll have a final say on it. And that I thought was a fair policy, but I was very open about the fact that in that final say referendum I would be voting to remain because I couldn't conceive of a deal that would be better than the one we had. Obviously that ship has sailed now, and I think for people like me who want close ties and cooperation, that's what we should be pushing for, is cooperation with our European friends. And those are our closest allies, both geographically and while we may have views about what might happen with the US presidential election, I certainly think that the last few years has shown us why we're close to Europe, sort of culturally as well as geographically.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And also there's been numerous accusations about the Labour Party being racist and anti-Semitic. What do you say about that? So
as you know, Dee, I found the whole situation we had with anti-Semitism, and we still have to some extent, it's not good enough to say, oh, it's all a problem of last year or the year before. Incredibly difficult to justify, and I never did try to justify it as a result. And I think that the fact that the party, the Party of Equality, the reason I joined the Labour Party was the Party of Equality.
Absolutely. Many of us joined because it was sold as the party for the many. Yeah, exactly.
And that is an incredibly shameful episode in our history. So the fact that we're being investigated by a body that we set up, the Equality and Human Rights Commission, it just demonstrates how far we've fallen from our ideals. So I'm really hopeful that report will be painful to read, and there will be all sorts of people who are implicated by it, but we just need to take it on the chin and say, right, you know what, the real victim here is not the Labour Party, it's the Jewish community who've been so hurt and who we have hurt. So I think that will be something for us all to take action on in the Labour Party. And I do feel that Keir Starmer has taken this very seriously. He's met frequently since, in fact, before he became leader, but including since he's been leader with Jewish leaders, obviously via video. And he and Angela Rayner, who's his deputy, and has also taken a strong stance on this, have been really clear about where they want the party to go. And I think we've still got a journey to go. But
so is it a problem with only anti-Semitism or with black and BAME communities as well?
I think the thing that came to the fore was obviously anti-Semitism, and there's been a particular issue with anti-Semitism. But I think in all institutions, including the Labour Party, including in individuals as well, I don't exclude myself from having the unconscious bias, we need to take very seriously Black Lives Matter, and why has that come to the fore this year? Obviously there was a specific trigger for that. But why had that resonance across the world, including in our own community? Why was that something which people, particularly wanted to stand up about? It's not just about one person's injustice in the US. It's about what's going on across the world, a systematic problem. And again, I think the Labour Party, as a party of equality, has a moral duty to kind of be a shining light, and that's not always the case.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure we get that right. And
Okay.
you know, I think the thing to do for me, you know, as one of the whitest people you see, you know, someone once called me the whitest person in Reading.
Yeah, I remember during the when we were counting the votes, somebody was talking about candidates, and he kind of said, "We need more people like you," indicating, you know, more black people or people of color. And he goes, "Rachel's good, but she's so white."
I am very white, Dee. Like, I mean,
We found that hilarious.
I'm coming out now. I'm white. But you know, like people like me who are white and don't have that experience, you know, I've got to listen to people of colour and particularly
be an ally.
You be an ally, exactly right. That's what I want to be. You know, and I hope I get it right a lot of the time. I'm not going to get it right all the time, you know. So
nobody's perfect.
Yeah, certainly not me.
Nobody's perfect.
But you know, it's Black History Month, and you know, that's something which should be just like another opportunity for us to learn and to educate ourselves. You know, and I think our lives are richer for doing that. You know, regardless of our skin colour, but also it helps us to underpin the challenging of institutional bias and racism, and also the sort of unconscious bias that I think is endemic. You know?
I was going to ask, what do you do then to attract new members, new voters in the face of such negativity?
I think it's just being honest and being yourself. To me, you know, the Labour Party has actually grown since the election. I think in terms of getting new members, losing elections seems to be a good way of recruiting members because people kind of get upset. They're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this has happened. I want to take action. Obviously, it's not a great way of changing the world. But attracting voters to me is about having a clear programme, being honest, and also being someone who's accessible. One of the things that I found, we as you know, our campaign here in Reading West actually massively outperformed the national performance. And one of the things I found helped to sway some people towards us was that accessibility, honesty, people knowing who I was. You know, like, they might go, oh, she's a bit white, but they knew who she was. You knew who I was. You know, you knew what I stood for. And I was there, you know, any community event.
You were. Yes, you were.
So, you know, that I think helps because then people can ask you those difficult questions, you know.
Yeah, because I think at the moment there's a lot of like voter apathy. A lot of people don't vote, especially in my community, because they feel like their voices are not being heard, that nothing ever changes. So what is the point? They're still being discriminated in almost every sector of the community. So they think, I might as well not go. So how do you convince somebody like that?
You have to give people a reason to vote for something. I think, of course, there's a place for negative campaigns, attacking people, but to me, the most powerful thing is having a reason to vote for someone, not a reason to vote against someone. And you only have to look at who wins when voter apathy happens to look at America. You know,
absolutely.
we know that the only way Donald Trump can win is if turnout is low in the states. You know, he wants low turnout, he wants apathy, he wants chaos and confusion. He wants people to believe their vote doesn't matter. That helps him. You know, so we have to say, actually, let's have something positive to vote for. And that, you know, that's why Obama won. You know, there was a huge surge in turnout amongst people who don't normally vote. And I don't think it's quite the same in this country because voter registration is much higher. But there is a lot in commonality of saying people who feel hopeful, people who feel that their voice matters are going to vote.
Absolutely.
And how do you get that? Personal relationships to some extent. You know, I can't know
being
everybody.
accessible,
But as many people, as if everybody knows someone who knows me, if I'd had another couple of years, that would have been my goal.
I think so. I think, you would have done a lot better. I think it's just time wasn't on your side. But hey, you know, we still have the future.
Exactly. Who knows what will happen in the future?
Exactly, and it leads me to my next question. As I mentioned earlier, you are the deputy mayor and you're councillor for Whitley. So what next for Rachel Eden? What can we expect for the future?
I don't know. I mean, I'm never someone who just wants to hold a title, and that sounds strange as someone who's deputy mayor, which is one of the most wonderful titles you can have, because the job of mayor and the job of deputy mayor, therefore, is, I always described it, I was trying to explain it to a child a few weeks ago who I met at an event, and he was asking, what does the mayor do? And I said, well, the mayor's job is to represent Reading. So if you're at an event, you're probably there to thank people on behalf of Reading. And the deputy mayor is sort of the person who turns up when the mayor's unavailable, and help and sort of does a supporting role. That's why the mayor's chain is gold and the deputy mayor's chain is silver, Yeah. It's like the silver medal.
Silver's good.
So, I'm not someone who's just saying, oh, I wanted this title or that title, I want to be this, I want to do things.
Yeah.
So for me, what I've always wanted to do is support our community. I love Reading. I think it's a wonderful place.
Yeah, I think so
more
too.
we can do better. There's a lot more we can do, and you touched on some of the things that, we do face in Reading, just as elsewhere. There's discrimination, there's racism, there's anti-Semitism I've seen that even in Reading. There's lots of things we can do better. But we are overall an amazing place. So my goal, my dream, for the next however long I've got involved in politics, is to keep making Reading a better place. And whether that's as a councillor, as deputy mayor, as parliamentary candidate, even as an MP, who knows? It doesn't matter what role I have.
As long as you do something positive for Reading.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. And I was just going to say, any final words for our viewers?
Oh.
Perhaps you could look into the camera and speak directly to them.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, I guess that leads on to what I would say.
I'll put you
Reading.
on the spot.
I think I would just want to talk about how much I love our community, really, because I am so proud that I live in Reading West, because, I always say, if you want to know what the best of our country is like, come to Reading West. You've got huge diversity of all kinds, whether it's racial, sexuality, countryside, urban, you've got everything in Reading West, and we're not somewhere that just sort of tolerates diversity, accepts it. We're somewhere that at its best we celebrate it, we enjoy it, we celebrate together. This year we've mourned together, we've had difficult times together, but what I've seen, and I've been really privileged actually as deputy mayor to see over the last months, has been a community that is strong and stands together. And whatever we face over the coming months and even years, we're going to face some difficult times in our country. I know that our community is the place I'd want to face it.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And thank you so much for joining me on Tea on the Couch. And thank you for tuning in. If you have any opinions, any comments on what we have discussed today, please leave me your comments and opinions in the comment section below. Until next time, I'll see you again with more women in politics. Bye.
Bye-bye.